It's funny to me that you asked for my words because I had already decided before you said it that I was going to do this, but instead we talked for a little bit, so now you just delayed it a little, that's all. Hopefully your English literature mother taught you about this author, James Tiptree Jr. If Mary Shelley is the mother, I'm not sure. I think I would amend what people say about science fiction and say that Mary Shelley is the grandmother of science fiction and James Tiptree Jr. is the mother of modern science fiction. James Tiptree Jr. is actually a pen name, if you didn't know, for Alice B. Sheldon, who, if you also didn't know, died through a murder-suicide because she realized that she lived in an awful sexist society that would never recognize her as a real author, as a woman, so she decided it was better if she and her partner were dead because her partner was already dying. So I'm going to read you, and I hope you know the story, but maybe you don't. If not, now you will know. It's called The Girl Who Was Plugged In, and it's not my favorite one, but it's my second favorite one. I think it's the one you'll enjoy the most. So I thought I would make this for you in case you can't hear my voice if I'm ill. So then you will have this to hear my voice. Can't always be sexy all the time, can we? Alright, The Girl Who Was Plugged In. It's a short story. And this is clearly written in an older language and lingo, but it's still pretty prescient. So, The Girl Who Was Plugged In. Listen, zombie, believe me. What could I tell you, you with your silly hands leaking sweat on your growth stocks portfolio? 110 lazy hacks of AT&T on 20-point margin and you think you're Evel Knievel? AT&T, double-knit dummy. How I'd love to show you something. Look dead, daddy, I'd say. See, for instance, that rotten girl in the crowd over there, that one, gaping at her gods. One rotten girl in the city of the future, that's what I said. Watch. She's jammed among bodies, craning and peering with her soul yearning out of her eyeballs. Love, oh, love them. Her gods are coming out of a store called Body East. 3 young bloods, larking along, loverly, dressed like simple street people, but smashing. See their great eyes swivel above their nose filters, their hands lift shyly, their inhumanly tender lips melt. The crowd moans. Love, this whole boiling megacity, this whole fun future world loves its gods. You don't believe gods, Dad? Wait, whatever turns you on, there's a god in the future for you. Custom made. Listen to this mob. I touched his foot, oh, I touched him. Even in the GTX tower up there, they love the gods in their own way and for their own reasons. The funky girl on the street, she just loves. Grooving on their beautiful lives, their mysterioso problems. No one ever told her about mortals who love a god and end up as a tree or a sighing sound. In a million years, it never occurred to her that her gods might love her back. She's squashed against the wall now as the godlings come by. They move in a clear space. A holocam bobs above, but its shadow never falls on them. The store display screens are magically clear of bodies as the gods glance in and a beggar underfoot is suddenly alone. They give him a token. Ah, the crowd goes. Now one of them flashes some wild new kind of timer and they all trot to catch a shuttle just like people. The shuttle stops for them. More magic. The crowd sighs, closing back. The gods are gone. And a room far from, but not unconnected to, the GTX tower, a molecular flip-flop closes too, and 3 account tapes spin. Our girl is still stuck by a wall while the guards and the holocam equipment pull away. The adoration's fading from her face. That's good because now you can see she's the ugly of the world, a tall monument to pituitary dystrophy. No surgeon would touch her. When she smiles, her jaw, it's half purple, almost bites her left eye out. She's also quite young, but who could care? The crowd is pushing her along now, treating you to glimpses of her jumbled torso, her mismatched legs. At the corner she strains to send one last fond spasm after the godlings shuttle. Then her face reverts to its usual expression of dim pain, and she lurches onto the moving walkway, stumbling into people. The walkway junctions with another. She crosses, trips, and collides with the casualty rail. Finally, she comes out in a little bare place called a park. The sports show is working. A basketball game in 3D is going on right above overhead. But all she does is squeeze onto a bench and huddle there while a ghostly free throw goes by her ear. After that, nothing at all happens except for a few furtive hand-mouth gestures which don't even interest her benchmates. But you're curious about the city. So ordinary, after all, in the future. There's plenty to swing with here. It's not all that far in the future, Dad. But pass up the sci-fi stuff for now. Like, for instance, the holovision technology that's put TV and radio in museums. Or the worldwide carrier field bouncing down from satellites controlling communication and transport systems all over the globe. That was a spin-off from an asteroid mining. Pass it by. We're watching that girl. I'll give you just one goodie. Maybe you noticed on the sports show or the streets, no commercials, no ads. That's right, no ads. An eyeballer for you. Look around. Not a billboard sign, slogan, jingle, skywrite, blurb, sublib, flash in this whole fun world. Brand names? Only in those ticky little peep screams on the stores, and you could hardly call that advertising. How does that finger you? Think about it. That girl is still sitting there. She's parked right underneath the base of the GTX tower, as a matter of fact. Look way up and you can see the sparkles from the bubble on top, up there among the domes of Godland. Inside that bubble is a boardroom. Neat bronze shield on the door, Global Transmissions Corporation. Not that that means anything. I happen to know that there are 6 people in that room, 5 of them technically male. And the 6th isn't easily thought of as a mother. They're absolutely unremarkable. Those faces were once seen at their nuptials and will show again in their obituaries and impress nobody either time. If you're looking for the secret big blue meanies of the world, forget it, I know. Zen do I know. Flesh, power, glory, you'd horrify them. What they do like up there is to have things orderly, especially their communications. You could say they've dedicated their lives to that, to freeing the world from their garble. Their nightmares are about hemorrhages of information, channels screwed up, means misimplemented, garble creeping in. Their gigantic wealth only worries them. It keeps opening new vistas of disorder. Luxury? They wear what their tailors put on them, eat what their cooks serve them. See that old boy there? His name is Isham. He's sipping water and frowning as he listens to a data ball. The water was prescribed by his metastaff. It tastes awful. The data ball also continues a disquieting message about his son, Paul. But it's time to go back down, far to our girl. Look, she's toppled over, sprawling on the ground. A tepid commotion ensues among the bystanders. The consensus is she's dead, which she disproves by bubbling a little. And presently she's taken away by one of the superb ambulances of the future, which are a real improvement over ours when one happens to be around. At the local Bellevue, the usual things are done by the usual team of clowns, aided by a saintly mop pusher. Our girl revives enough to answer the questionnaire, without which you can't die, even in the future. Finally, she's cast up a pumped-out hulk on a cot in the long, dim ward. Again, nothing happens for a while except that her eyes leak a little from the understandable disappointment of finding herself alive. But somewhere, one GTX computer has been tickling another, and toward midnight, something does happen. First comes an attendant who pulls screens around her. Then a man in a business doublet comes daintily down the ward. He motions the attendant to strip off the sheet and go. The groggy girl brute heaves up, big hands clutching at body parts you'd pay not to see. Burke, P. Burke, is that your name? Yes. Croak. Are you policeman? No, they'll be along shortly, I expect. Public suicide's a felony. I'm sorry. He has a quarter in his hand. No family, right? No. You're 17, 1 year city college. What did you study? Languages. Say something. Unintelligible rasp. He studies her. Seen close, he's not so elegant. Errand boy type. Why did you try to kill yourself? She stares at him with a dead rat dignity, hauling up the grail sheet. Give him a point, he doesn't ask twice. Tell me, did you see Breath this afternoon? She stares at him. Dead as she nearly is, that ghastly love look wells up. Breath is the three young gods, a loser's cult. Give the man another point, he interprets her expression. How would you like to meet them? The girl's eyes bug out grotesquely. I have a job for someone like you, it's hard work. If you did well, you'd be meeting Breath and stars like that all the time. Is he insane? She's deciding she really did die. But it means you never see anybody you know again. Never, ever. You will be legally dead. Even the police won't know. Do you want to try? It all has to be repeated while her great jaw slowly sets. Show me the fire I walked through. Finally, P. Burke's prints are in his quarter, the man holding up the big, rancid girl body without a sign of distaste. It makes you wonder what else he does. And then the magic. Sudden silent trot of litter bearers tucking P. Burke into something quite different from Bellevue stretcher, the oiled slide into the daddy of all luxury ambulances. Real flowers in that holder. And the long, jarless rush to nowhere. Nowhere is warm and gleaming and kind with nurses. Where did you hear that money can't buy genuine kindness? And clean clouds folding P. Burke into a bewildering sleep. Sleep which merges into feedings and washings and more sleeps into drowsy moments of afternoon where midnight should be, and gentle businesslike voices and friendly but very few faces. And endless, painless hyposprays and peculiar numbnesses. And later the steadying rhythm of days and nights. And a quickening which P. Burke doesn't identify as health, but only knows that the fungus place in her armpit is gone. And then she's up, following those few new faces with growing trust, first tottering, then walking strongly, all better now, clumping down the short hall to the tests, and the other things. And here's our girl looking, if possible, worse than before. You thought this was Cinderella transistorized? The disimprovement in her looks come from the electrode jacks peeking out of her sparse hair, and there are other meldings of flesh and metal. On the other hand, that collar and the spinal plate are really an asset. You won't miss seeing that neck. P. Burke is ready for training in her new job. The training takes place in her suite. It is exactly what you call a charm course. How to walk, sit, eat, speak, blow her nose, how to stumble, to urinate, to hiccup deliciously. How to make each nose blow or shrug delightfully, subtly different from any ever spool before. As the man said, it's hard work. But P. Brooke proves apt. Somewhere in that horrible body is a gazelle or Uri, who would have been buried forever without this crazy chance. See the ugly duckling go. Only it isn't precisely P. Burke who's stepping, laughing, shaking out her shining hair. How could it be? P. Burke is doing it all right, but she's doing it through something. The something is, to all appearances, a live girl. You were warned this is the future. When they first open the big cryo case and show her new body, she says just one word, staring, gulping. How? Simple, really. Watch P. Burke in her sack and scuffs stump down the hall beside Joe, the man who supervises the technical part of her training. Joe doesn't mind P. Burke's looks. He hasn't noticed them. To Joe, system matrices are beautiful. They go into a dim room containing a huge cabinet, like a one-man sauna and a console for Joe. The room has a glass wall that's all dark now. And just for your information, the whole shebang is 500 feet underground in what used to be Carbondale, Pennsylvania. Joe opens the sauna cabinet like a big clamshell standing on end with a lot of funny business inside. Our girl shucks her shift and walks into it bare, totally unembarrassed, eager. She settles in face forward, butting jacks into sockets. Joe closes it carefully onto her humpback. Clunk. She can't see in there or hear or move. She hates this minute, but how she loves what comes next. Joe's at his console and the lights on the other side of the glass wall comes up. A room is on the other side, all fluff and kicky bits, a girly bedroom. In the bedroom is a small mound of silk with a rope of yellow hair hanging out of it. The sheet stirs and gets whammed back flat. Sitting up in the bed is the darlingest girl child you've ever seen. She quivers. Porno for angels. She sticks both her little arms straight up, flips her hair, looks around full of sleepy pizzazz. Then she can't resist rubbing her hands down over her mini breasts and belly, because you see it's the god-awful P. Burke who is sitting there hugging her perfect girl body, looking out at you with delighted eyes. Then the kitten hops out of bed and crashes flat on the floor. From the sauna in the dim room comes a strangled noise. P. Burke, trying to rub her wired-up elbow, is suddenly smothered in two bodies, electrodes jerking in her flesh. Joe juggles inputs, crooning into his mic. The flurry passes, it's all right. In the lighted room, the elf gets up, casts a cute glare at the glass wall, and goes into a transparent cubicle. A bathroom, what else? She's a live girl, and live girls have to go to the bathroom after a night's sleep, even if their brains are in a sauna cabinet in the next room. And P. Burke isn't in that cabinet, she's in the bathroom. Perfectly simple if you have the glue for that closed-circuit training circuit. That's letting her run her neural system by remote control. Now let's get one thing clear. P. Burke does not feel her brain is in the sauna room. She feels she's in that sweet little body. When you wash your hands, do you feel the water is running on your brain? Of course not. You feel the water on your hand, although the feeling is just a potential pattern flickering over the electrochemical jelly between your ears. And it's delivered there via long circuits from your hands. Just so, P. Burke's brain in the cabinet feels the water on her hands in the bathroom. The fact that the signals have jumped across space on the way in makes no difference at all. If you want the jargon, it's known as eccentric projection or sensory reference, and you've done it all your life. Clear? Time to leave the honeypot to her toilet training. She's made a boo-boo with the toothbrush because Peeber can't get used to what she sees in the mirror. But wait, you say, where did that girl body come from? Peeber asks that too, dragging out the words. They grow 'em, Joe tells her. He couldn't care less about the flesh department. PDs, placental decanters, modified embryos, you see. Fit the control implants later. Without a remote operator, it's just a vegetable. Look at the feet, no callus at all. He knows because they told him. Oh, she's incredible. Yeah, a neat job. You want to try walking talking mode today? You're coming on fast. And she is. Joe reports and the reports from the nurse and to the doctor and the style man to a bushy man upstairs with some kind of medical cyber tech but mostly a project administrator. His reports in turn go to the GTX boardroom? Certainly not. Did you think this is a big thing? His reports just go up. The point is, they're green. Very green. Peeberg promises well. So the bushy man, Dr. Tesla, has procedures to initiate. A little kitten's dossier and the central bank data, for instance, purely routine. And the phase-in schedule, which will put her on the scene. This is simple, a small exposure in an off-network holo show. Next, he has to line out the event which will fund and target her. That takes budget meetings, clearances, coordinations, messy businesses of the name, which always gives Dr. Tesla an actual acute pain in the bush. The name comes out weird when it's finally suddenly discovered that the Burke's P stands for Philadelphia. Philadelphia? The astrologer grooves on it. Joe thinks it would help identification, the semantics, girl references, brotherly love, Liberty Bell, mainline, low teratogenesis, blah blah blah. Nicknames? Philly? Paula? Pooty? Delphi? Is it good? Bad? Finally, Delphi is gingerly declared goodo. Burke is replaced by something nobody remembers. Coming along now, we're at the official checkout down in the underground suite, which is as far as the training circuits reach. The bushy Dr. Tesla is there, braced by two budgetary types and a quiet fatherly man, whom he handles like hot plasma. Joe swings the door wide open as she steps shyly in. Their little Delphi, 15 and flawless. I lost it. Oh. Tesla introduces her around. She's child solemn, a beautiful baby to whom something so wonderful has happened you can feel the tingles. She doesn't smile, she brims. That brimming joy is all that shows of Pete Burke, the forgotten Hulk, in the sauna next door. But Pete Burke doesn't know she's alive. It's Delphi who lives, every warm inch of her. One of the budget types lets go a libidinous snuffle and freezes. The fatherly man, whose name is Mr. Cantle, clears his throat. Well, young lady, are you ready to go to work? Yes, sir, gravely from the elf. We'll see. Has anybody told you what you're going to do for us? No, sir. Joe and Tesla exhale quietly. Good. He eyes her, probing for the blind brain in the room next door. Do you know what advertising is? He's talking dirty, hitting to shock. Delphi's eyes widen and her little chin goes up. Joe's in ecstasy at the complex expressions P. Burke is getting through. Mr. Cantle waits. It's when they used to tell people to buy things. She swallows. It's not allowed. That's right. Mr. Cantle leans back, grave. Advertising, as it used to be, is against the law. A display other than the legitimate use of the product intended to promote its sale. In former times, every manufacturer was free to tout his wares any way, place, or time he could afford. All the media and most of the landscape was taken up with extravagant competing displays. The thing became uneconomic. The public rebelled. Since the so-called Huckster Act sellers have been restrained to, I quote, displays in or on the product itself visibly during its legitimate use or in on or on-premise sales. Mr. Cantor leans forward. Now tell me, Delphi, why do people buy one product rather than another? Well, enchanting puzzlement from Delphi. They see them and like them, or they hear about them from somebody? Touchy P-Burk there, she didn't say. From a friend. Partly. Why did you buy your particular body lift? I've never had a body lift, sir. Mr. Cantle frowns. What gutters do they drag for these remotes? What brand of water do you drink? Just what was in the faucet, sir, says Delphi humbly. I did try to boil it. Good God! He scowls. Tesla stiffens. Well, what did you boil it in? A cooker? The shining yellow head nods. What brand of cooker did you buy? I didn't buy it, sir, says frightened P-Book through Delphi's lips. But I know the best kind. Ananga has a Burnbubby? Burnbubby. I saw the name when she... Exactly. Cantle's fatherly being comes back strong. The Burnaby account is a strong one, too. You saw Ananga using one, so you thought it must be good, eh? And it is good. Or a great human like Ananga wouldn't be using it. Absolutely right. Now, Delphi, you know what you're going to be doing for us. You're going to be showing some products, and that doesn't sound very hard, does it? Oh, no, sir. Baffled child stare. Joe gloats. And you must never, never tell anyone what you're doing. Cantle's eyes bore for the brain behind the seductive child. You're wondering why we ask you to do this, naturally. There's a very serious reason. All those products people use, foods and health aids and cookers and cleaners and clothes and cars, they're all made by people. Somebody puts in years of hard work designing and making them. A man comes up with a fine new idea for a better product. He has to get it to a factory and machinery and hire workmen. Now, what happens if people have no way of hearing about his product? Word of mouth is far too slow and unreliable. Nobody might ever stumble onto his new product or find out how good it was, right? And then he and all the people who worked for him, they go bankrupt, right? So, Delphi, there has to be some way that large numbers of people can get a good look at the new product, right? How? By letting people see you using it. You're giving that man a chance. Delphi's little head is nodding in happy relief. Yes, sir, I do see now, but sir, it seems so sensible. Why don't they let you... Cantle smiles sadly. It's an overreaction, my dear. History goes by swings. People overreact and pass harsh, unrealistic laws which attempt to stamp out an essential social process. When this happens, people who understand have to carry on as best they can till the pendulum swings back. He sighs. The huckster laws are bad, inhuman laws, Delphi, despite their good intent. If they were strictly observed, they would wreak havoc. Our economy, our society would be cruelly destroyed. We'd be back in caves. His inner fire is showing. If huckster laws were strictly enforced, he'd be back punching a data bank. It's our duty, Delphi, our solemn social duty. We are not breaking the law. You will be using the product. People wouldn't understand if they knew. They'd become upset just as you did, so you must be very, very careful not to mention to any of this anybody. And somebody will be very, very carefully monitoring Delphi's speech circuits. Now, we're all straight, aren't we? Little Delphi here? He is speaking to the invisible creature next door. Little Delphi is going to live a wonderful, exciting life. She's going to be a girl people watch, and she's going to be using fine products people will be glad to know about, and helping the good people who make them. Yours will be a genuine social contribution. He keeps up his pitch. The creature in there must be older. Delphi digests this with ravishing gravity. But, sir, how do I? Don't worry about a thing. You'll have people behind you whose job it is to select the most worthy products for you to use. Your job is just to do as they say. They'll show you what outfits to wear to parties, what sung cars and viewers to buy, and so on. That's all you have to do. Parties, clothes, sun cars, Delphi's pink mouth opens, and P. Burke's starved 17-year-old head, the ethics of product sponsorship float far away. Now tell me in your own words what your job is, Delphi. Yes, sir, I'm to go to parties and buy things and use them as they tell me and to help the people who work in factories. And what did I say was so important? Oh, I shouldn't let anybody know about the things. Right. Mr. Cantle has another paragraph he uses when the subject shows, well, immaturity. But he can sense only eagerness here. Good. He doesn't really enjoy the other speech. It's a lucky girl who can have all the fun she wants while she's doing good for others, isn't it? He beams around. There's a prompt shuffling of chairs. Clearly this one is a go. Joe leads her out grinning. The poor fool thinks they're admiring her coordination. It's out into the world for Delphi now, and at this point the up channels get used. On the administrative side count, schedules are open, sub-projects are activated. On the technical side, the reserved bandwidth is clear. That carrier field, remember? A new name is waiting for Delphi, a name she'll never hear. It's a long string of binaries which have been quietly cycling in a GTX tank ever since a certain beautiful person didn't wake up. The name winks out of cycle, dances from pulses into modulations of modulations, whizzing through phasing, and shoots into a gigaband beam, racing up to a synchronous satellite poised over Guatemala. From there, the beam pours 20,000 miles back to Earth again, forming an all-pervasive field of structured energics, supplying tuned demand points all over the Can-Am quadrant. With that field, if you have the right credit rating, you can sit at a GTX console and operate an OR accelerator in Brazil. Or if you have some simple credentials like being able to walk on water, you could shoot a spool into the network holocam shows running day and every night in every home, dorm, and rec site. Or you could create a continent-wide traffic jam. Is it any wonder GTX guards those inputs like a sacred trust? Delphi's name appears as a tiny analyzable non-redundancy in the flux, and she'd be very proud if she knew about it. It would strike P. Burke as magic. P. Burke never even understood robot cars, but Delphi is in no sense a robot. Call her a Waldo if you must. The fact is she's just a girl, a real live girl, with her brain in an unusual place. A simple real-time online system with plenty of bitrate. Even as you and you. The point of all this hardware, which isn't very much hardware in this society, is so Delphi can walk out of that underground suite, mobile demand point draining on an omnipresent feld form. And she does, 89 pounds of tender girl flesh and blood with a few metallic components stepping out into the sunlight to be taken into her new life. A girl with everything going for her, including a med-tech escort. Walking lovely, stopping to widen her eyes at the big antenna system overhead. The mere fact that something called P. Burke is left behind down underground has no bearing at all. P. Burke is totally unself-aware and happy as a clam in its shell. Her bed has been moved into the Waldo cabinet room now. And P. Burke isn't in the cabinet. P. Burke is climbing out of an air van in a fabulous Colorado beef preserve, and her name is Delphi. Delphi is looking at the Charlotte stairs and the cottonwoods and aspens gold against the blue smog and stepping over live grass to be welcomed by the reserved super's wife. The super's wife is looking forward to a visit from Delphi and her friends, and by a happy coincidence there's a hologram outfit here doing a piece for the nature nuts. You could write the script yourself now, while Delphi learns a few rules about structural interferences and how to handle the tiny time lag which results from the new 40,000-mile parenthesis in her nervous system. That's right, the people with the least holocam rig naturally find the gold aspen shadows look a lot better on Delphi's flank than they do on a steer. And Delphi's face improves the mountains too when you see them. The nature freaks aren't quite as joyful as you'd expect. See you in Barcelona, kitten. the headman said sourly as they pack up. Barcelona, echoes Delphi with that charming little subliminal lag. She sees where his hand is and steps back. Cool, it's not her fault, another man says wearily. He knocks back his grizzled hair. Maybe they'll leave in some of the gut. Delphi watches them go off to load the spools onto the GTX transport for processing. Her hand roves over the breast the man has touched. Back under Carbondale, PA, P. Burke has discovered something new about her Delphi body, about the difference between Delphi and her own grim carcass. She's always known Delphi has almost no sense of taste or smell. They explained about that. Only so much bandwidth. You don't have to taste a sun car, do you? The slight overall dimness of Delphi's sense of touch. She's familiar with that, too. Fabrics that would prickle P. Burke's own hide feel like a cool plastic film to Delphi. But the blank spots took her a while to notice them. Delphi doesn't have much privacy. Investments of her size don't. So she's slow about discovering there's certain definite places where her beastly P. Burke body feels things. I'm going to start again. But the blank spots, period. It took her a while to notice them. Delphi doesn't have much privacy. Investments of her size don't. So she's slow about discovering there's certain definite places where her beastly P. Burke body feels things that Delphi's dainty flesh does not. Channel space again, she thinks, and forgets it in the pure bliss of being Delphi. You ask how a girl could forget a thing like that. Look, P. Burke is about as far as you can get from the concept of girl. She's a female, yes, but for her, sex is a four-letter word spelled P-A-I-N. She isn't quite a virgin. You don't want the details. She'd been about 12 and the freak lovers were bombed blind. When they came down, they threw her out with a small hole in her anatomy and a mortal one elsewhere. She dragged off to buy her first and last shot, and she can still hear the clerk's incredulous guffaws. Do you see why Delphi grins, stretching her delicious, numb body in the sun she faintly feels? Beam saying, please, I'm ready now. Ready for what? For Barcelona, like the man said, where his nature thing is now making it strong in the amateur section of the festival. A winner. Like he also said, a lot of strip mines and dead fish have been scrubbed, but who cares with Delphi's darling face so visible? So it's time for Delphi's face and her other delectabilities to show on Barcelona's Playa Nueva, which means switching her channel to the Eurasinsect. They ship her at night so the nanosecond transfer isn't even noticed by that insignificant part of Delphi that lives 500 feet under Carbondale. So excited, the nurse has to make sure she eats. The circuit switches Delphi sleeps. The circuit switches while Delphi sleeps, that is, while P. Burke is out of the Waldo cabinet. Next time she plugs in to open Delphi's eyes, it's no different. Do you notice which relay boards your phone calls go through? And now for the event that turns the sugar cube from Colorado into the princess. Literally true, he's a prince, or rather an infante of an old Spanish line that got shined up the neo-monarchy. He's also 81 with a passion for birds, the kind you see in zoos. Now it suddenly turns out that he isn't poor at all. Quite the reverse. His old sister laughs in their tax lawyer's face and starts restoring the family hacienda while the infante totters out to court Delphi. Little Delphi begins to live the life of the gods. What do gods do? Well, everything beautiful. But remember Mr. Cantle? The main point is things. Ever see a god empty-handed? You can't be a god without at least a magic girdle or an 8-legged horse. But in the old days, some stone tablets or winged sandals or a chariot drawn by virgins would do a god for life. No more. Gods make it on novelty now. By Delphi's time, the hunt for new god gear is turning the earth and seas inside out and sending frantic fingers to the stars. And what gods have, mortals desire. So Delphi starts on a Euro market shopping spree, squired by our old Infante, thereby doing her a bit to stave off social collapse. Social what? Didn't you get it when Mr. Cantle talked about a world where advertising is banned and 15 billion consumers are glued to their holocam shows? One capricious, self-powered god can wreck you. Take the nose filter massacre. Years the industry sweated, years to achieve an almost invisible enzymatic filter. So one day a couple of pop gods show up wearing those nose filter like big purple bats. By the end of the week, the world market is screaming for purple bats. Then it switched to bird heads and skulls, but by the time the industry retooled, the crazies had dropped bird heads and gone into interjection globes. Blood. Multiply that by 1,000,000 consumer industries, and you can see why it's economic to have a few controllable gods. Especially with the beautiful hunk of space R&D the Peace Department laid out for, and which the taxpayers are only too glad to have taken off their hands by an outfit like GTX, which everybody knows is almost a public trust. And so you, or rather GTX, find a creature like P. Burke and give her Delphi. And Delphi helps keep things orderly. She does whatever you tell her to. Why? That's right, Mr. Cantle never finished his speech. But here comes the test of Delphi's button nose twinkling, and torrent of news and entertainment, and she's noticed. The feedback shows a flock of viewers turning up the amps when this country baby gets tangled in her new colloidal body jewels. She registers at a couple of major scenes, too, and when the Infante gives her a sun car, little Delphi trying out when the Infante gives her a little sun car, little Delphi trying out sun cars is a tiger. It's a solid response in high credit country. Mr. Cantle is humming his happy tune as he cancels his Abenelo subnet option to guest her on a nude cook show called Walk Venus. And now for the super posh old world wedding. The hacienda has Moorish baths and a 6-foot silver candelabra and real black horses. The Spanish Vatican blesses them. The final event is a grand guacho ball with the old prince and his little infanta on a bowered balcony. She's a spectacular doll of silver lace, wildly launching toy doves at her new friends whirling by below. The Infante beams, twitches his old nose to the scent of her sweet excitement. His doctor has been very helpful, surely now, after he has been so patient with the sun cars and all the nonsense. Child looks up at him, saying something incomprehensible about breath. He makes out that she's complaining about the 3 singers she begged for. They've changed, she marvels. Haven't they changed? They're so dreary. I'm so happy now. And Delphi falls fainting against a gothic vargueno. Her American duenna rushes up, calls help. Delphi's eyes are open, but Delphi isn't there. Duenna pokes among Delphi's hair, slaps her. The old prince grimaces. He has no idea what she is beyond an excellent solution to his tax problems. But he had been a falconer in his youth. There comes to mind the small pinioned birds which were flung up to stimulate the hawks. He pockets the vain claw to which he had promised certain indulgences and departs to design his new aviary. And Delphi also departs with her retinue to the Infante's newly discovered yacht. The trouble isn't serious. It's only that 5,000 miles away and 500 feet down, P. Burke hasn't been doing too well. They've always known she has terrific aptitude. Joe says he never saw a remote takeover so fast. No disorientations, no rejections. Psychomed talks about self-alienation. She's going to Delphi like a salmon to the sea. She isn't sleeping or eating. They can't keep her out of the body cavity to get her blood moving. There are necrosises under her grisly sit-down. Crisis. Delphi gets a long sleep on the yacht, and P-Bird gets it pounded through her perforated head that she's endangering Delphi. Their slumming thinks of that, thus alienating the Psychomed. They rig a pool down there, and they're slumming again, and chase P-Bird back and forth, and she loves it. So naturally, when they plug her in again, Delphi loves it too. Every noon beside the yacht's hydrofoils, darling Delphi clips along in the blue sea they've warmed her not to drink. And every night around the shoulder of the world, an ill-shaped thing in a dark burrow beats its way across a sterile pool. So presently the yacht stands up on its foils and carries Delphi to the program Mr. Contel has waiting. His long range is scheduled for at least 2 decades of product life. Phase 1 calls for her to connect with a flock of young ultra-riches who are romping loose between the Briona and Jakarta, whereas a competitor named PEV could pick them off. A routine Lux Gear Op C, no politics, no policy angles, and the main budget items are the title and the yacht, which was idle anyway. The storyline is that Delphi goes to accept some rare birds for her prince. Who cares? The point is that the Haiti area is no longer radioactive, and look, the gods are there. And so are several new Carib West Happy Isles which can afford GTX rates. In fact, 2 of them are GTX subsids. But you don't want to get the idea that all these newsworthy people are wired up Robbies for pity's sake. You don't need many if they're placed right. Delphi asks Joe about that when he comes down to Barranquilla to check her over. P-Birk's own mouth hasn't said much for a while. Are there many like me? Nobody's like you, Buttons. Look, are you still getting a Van Allen warble? I mean, like, Davy, is he a remote? Davy is the lad who is helping her collect the birds, a sincere redhead who needs a little more exposure. Davy, he's one of Matt Boy's, some psycho job. They haven't any channel. What about the real ones? Juma Van O or Ali or Jim 10? Juma was born with a pile of GTX basic where her brain should be. She's nothing but a pain. Jimsy does what his astrologer tells him. Look, Peanut, where do you get the idea you aren't real? You're the realist. Aren't you having joy? Oh, Joe, flinging her little arms around him and his analyzer grids. Oh, me gusta mucho. Me gusta mucho muchísimo. Hey. He pats her yellow head, folding the analyzer. 3,000 miles north and 500 feet down, forgotten hulk in a body Waldo glows. And she is having joy. To waken out of the nightmare of being P. Burke and finding herself a Perry, a star girl. On a yacht in paradise with no more to do than adorn herself and play with toys and attend revels and greet her friends, her P. Burke, having friends, and turning the right way for the holocams? Joy. And it shows. One look at Delphi and the viewers know dreams can come true. Look at her riding the pillion on Davy's sea bike, carrying an apoplectic macaw in a silver hoop. Oh, Morton, let's go there this winter. Or learning a Japanese chichona from that Kobe group in a dress that looks like a blowtorch rising from one knee, and which should sell big in Texas. Morton, is that real fire? Happy, happy little girl. And Davy, he's her pet and her baby, and she loves to help him fix his red gold hair. P-Burke marveling, running Delphi's fingers through the curls. Of course, Davy is one of Matt's boys, not impotent exactly, but very, very low drive. Nobody knows exactly what Matt does with his bitty budget, but the boys are useful, and 1 or 2 have made names. He's perfect for Delphi. In fact, the Psychomed lets her take him to bed, 2 kittens in a basket. Davy doesn't mind the fact that Delphi sleeps like the dead. That's when P. Burke is out of the body Waldo up at Carbondale tending to her own depressing needs. A funny thing about that, most of her sleepy time, Delphi is just a gently tickling, lush little vegetable waiting for P. Burke to get back on the controls. But now and again, Delphi all by herself smiles a bit or stirs in her sleep. Once she breathed the sound. Yes. Under Carbondale, P. Burke knows nothing. She's asleep too, dreaming of Delphi. What else? But if the bushy Dr. Tesla had heard that single syllable, his bush would have turned snow white, because Delphi is turned off. He doesn't. Davy is too dim to notice, and Delphi's staff boss, Hopkins, wasn't monitoring. They've all got something else to think about now because the coal-fired dress sells 500,000 copies, and not only in Texas. The GTX computer knows it already. When they correlate a minor demand for macaws in Alaska, the problem comes to human attention. Delphi is something special. It's a problem, see, because Delphi is targeted on a limited consumer bracket. Now, it turns out she has a mass pop potential. Those macaws in Fairbanks, man. It's like trying to shoot mice with an ABM, a whole new ball game. Dr. Tesla and the fatherly Mr. Cantle start going around in headquarters circles and buddy launching together when they can't get away from a seventh level weasel boy who scares them both. In the end, it's decided to ship Delphi down to the GTX Holocam Enclave in Chile to try to spot on one of the mainstream shows. Never mind why Infanta takes up acting. The Holocam complex occupies a couple of mountains where an observatory once used the clean air. Holocam total environment shells are very expensive and electronically super stable. Inside them, actors can move freely without going off register, and the whole scene or any selected part will show up in the viewer's home in complete 3D. So real you can look up their noses, and much denser than you can get from the mobile rigs. You can blow a 10 feet tall when there's no molecular skiffle around. The Enclave looks, well, take everything you know about Hollywood Burbank and throw it away. What Delphi sees coming down is a neat giant mushroom farm, domes of all sizes up to monsters for the big games and stuff. It's orderly. The idea that art thrives on creative flamboyance has long been torpedoed by proof that what art needs is computers. Because the showbiz has something TV and Hollywood never had, automated inbuilt viewer feedback. Samples, ratings, critics, polls, forget it. With that carrier field, you can get real-time server response readouts from every receiver in the world served up at your console. That started as a thingy to give the public more influence on the content. Yes. Try it, man. You're at the console. Slice the sex age econo-ethno-cetera audience of your choice and start. I'm just going to show you that sentence for a second. Do you see that? It's ridiculous. Oh, I love her. Anyway. You can't miss. Where the feedback warms up, give them more of that. Warm, warmer, hot. You've hit it, the secret itch. Under those hides, the dream in those hearts, you don't need to know its name. With your hand controlling all the input and your eye reading all the response, you can make them a god and somebody'll do the same for you. But Delphi just sees rainbows when she gets through the discussing ports and the field relay and takes her first look at the inside of those shells. Next thing she sees is a team of sharpers and technicians descending on her, and millisecond timers everywhere. Tropical leisure is finished. She's in a gigabuck mainstream now at the funnel maw of the unceasing hose that's pumping the sight and sound and flesh and blood and sobs and laughs and dreams of reality into the world's happy head. Little Delphi is going plonk into a zillion homes in prime time, and nothing is left to chance. Work. And Delphi proves that. Of course, it's really P. Burke down under Carbondale who's doing it, but who remembers that carcass? Certainly not P. Burke. She hasn't spoken through her own mouth for months. Delphi doesn't even recall dreaming of her when she wakes up. As for the show itself, don't bother. It's gone on so long, no living soul could unscramble the plot line. Delphi's trial spot has something to do with a widow and her dead husband's brother's amnesia? Flap comes from Delphi's spots. The flap comes after Delphi's spots begin to flash out along the world hose and the feedback appears. You've guessed it, of course. Sensational, as you'd say. They identify. The report actually says something like inskinimp with a string of percentages, meaning that Delphi not only has it for anybody with a Y chromosome, but also for women and everything in between. It's the supernatural jackpot, the 1,000,000 to 1. I believe they're implying that she is ideal for all audiences, regardless of their gender identity. Remember your Harlow, a sex bot, sure, but why did bitter Halfro and Gary in Memphis know that the vanilla ice cream goddess with the white hair and crazy eyebrows was their baby girl? And writing love letters to Jean warning her that their husbands weren't good enough for her? Why? The GTX analysts don't know either, but they do know what to do with it when it happens. Back in his bird sanctuary, the old Infante spots it without benefit of computers and gazes thoughtfully at his bride and widow's weeds. It might, he feels, be well to accelerate the completion of his studies. The excitement reaches down to the borough under Carbondale, where P. Burke gets 2 medical exams in a week, and a chronically inflamed electrode is replaced. Nurse Fleming also gets an assistant who doesn't do much nursing, but is very interested in access doors and identity tabs. And in Chile, little Delphi is promoted to a new home up among the stars residential spreads, and a private jitney to carry her to work. For Hopkins, there's a new computer terminal and a full-time schedule man. What is the schedule crowded with? Things. And here begins the trouble. You probably saw that coming too. What does she think she is, a goddamn consumer rep? Mr. Cantle's fatherly face in Carbondale contorts. Girl's upset, Miss Fleming says stubbornly. She believes that. What you told her about helping people in good new products. They are good products, Mr. Cantle snaps automatically, but his anger is under control. He hasn't got where he is by irrelevant reactions. She says the plastic gave her a rash and the glow pills made her dizzy. Good God, she shouldn't swallow them, Dr. Tesla puts in agitatedly. You told her she'd use them, persists Mrs. Fleming. Mr. Cantle is busy figuring out how to ease this problem to the feral-faced young man. What, was it a goose that lays golden eggs? Whatever he says to level 7, down in Chile, the offending products vanish, and a symbol goes into Delphi's tank matrix, one that means roughly balance unit resistance against PR index. This means that Delphi's complaints will be endured as long as her pop response stays above a certain level. What happens when it sinks need not concern us. And to compensate, the price of her exposure time rises again. She's a regular on the show now, and response is still climbing. See her under the sizzling lasers in a holocam shell set up as a walkway accident. The show is guessing an acupuncture school show. I don't think this new body left is safe, Delphi is saying. It's made a funny blue spot on me. Look, Mr. Veer. She wiggles to show where the mini grave pack that imparts a delicious sense of weightlessness is attached. Don't leave it on, Dee. With your meat, watch that deck spot. It's starting to sink. But if I don't wear it, it isn't honest. They shouldn't insulate it more or something, don't you see? The show's beloved old father, who is the casualty, gives a senile snigger. I'll tell them, Mr. Veer mutters. Look now, as you step back, bend like this so it just shows, see? And hold 2 beats. Obediently, Delphi turns. and through the dazzle her eyes connect with a pair of strange dark ones. She squints. You would think I'm going to say the next word is quiet, but the word is quite. A quite young man is lounging alone by the port, apparently waiting to use the chamber. Delphi is used by now to young men looking at her with many peculiar expressions, but she isn't used to what she gets here. A jolt of something somber and knowing. Secrets. Eyes, Dee, eye! She moves through routine, stealing peeks at the stranger. He stares back. He knows something. When they let her go, she comes shyly to him. Living wild, kitten? Cool voice, hot underneath. What do you mean? Dumping on the project? You trying to get dead? But it isn't right, she tells him. They don't know, but I do. I've been wearing it. His cool is jolted. You're out of your head. Oh, we'll see I'm right when they check it, she explains. They're just so busy. When I tell them... He's staring down at her little flower face. His mouth opens. Closes. What are you doing in the sewer anyway? Who are you? Bewilderingly, she says, I'm Delphi. Holy Zen. What's wrong? Who are you? Please? Her people are moving her out now, nodding at him. Sorry we ran over, Mr. Una, the script girl says. He mutters something, but it's lost as her convoy bustles her towards the flower-decked jitney. The click of an invisible ignition train being armed. Who was he? Delphi asks her hairman. Hairman is bending up and down from his knees as he works. Paul, Isham, 3, he says, and he puts a comb in his mouth. Who's that? I can't see. He mumbles around the comb, meaning, are you driving? Because she has to be in the middle of a GTX enclave. Next day there's a darkly smoldering face under a turban towel when Delphi and the show's paraplegic go to use the carbonated pool. She looks, he looks, and the next day too. Hear the automatic sequencer cutting in? The system couples. The fuels begin to travel. Poor old Isham Sr. You have to feel sorry for a man who values order. When he begets young, genetic information is still transmitted in the old way. 1 minute it's a happy midget with a rubber duck. Look around and here's this huge, healthy stranger, opaquely emotional, running with God who knows. Questions are heard where there's nothing to question, and eruptions claiming to be moral outrage. When this is called to Papa's attention, it may take time on that border. Papa does what he can. Without immortality juice, the problem is worrisome. And young Paul Isham is a bear. He's bright and articulate and tender-souled and incessantly active. And he and his friends are choking with appallment at the world their fathers made. It doesn't take Paul long to discover that his father's house has many mansions, and even GTX computers can't relate to everything else. Can't relate everything to everything else. He knows about a decaying project, which adds up to something like sponsoring marginal creativity. The freelance team that discovered Delphi was one such grantee. And from there it turns out that an agile lad named Isham can get his hands on a viable packet of GTX holocam facilities. So here he is with his little band way down in the Mushroom Farm mountain, busily spooling a show that has no relation to Delphi's. It's built on bizarre techniques and unsettling distortions pregnant with social protest, an underground expression to you. And all this isn't unknown to his father, of course, but so far it has done nothing more than deepen Isham Sr.'s oppressive frown, until Paul connects with Delphi. And by the time Papa learns this, those invisible hieroglyphics have exploded, the energy shells are rushing out. For Paul, you see, is the genuine article. He's serious, he dreams, he even reads, for example, Green Mansions. And he wept fiercely when those fiends burned Rima alive. When he hears that some new GTX pussy is making it big, he sneers and forgives it. He's busy. He never connects the name with this little girl making her idiotic doom protest in the holocam chamber. This strangely simple little girl. She comes up and looks at him, and he sees Rima, lost Rima, the enchanted bird girl, and his unwired human heart goes twang. And Rima turns out to be Delphi. Do you need a map? The angry puzzlement? The rejection of the dissonance Rima hustling for GTX my father? Garbage cannot be. Loitering around the pool to confirm the swindle, dark eyes hitting on blue wonder, jerky words exchanged in a peculiar stillness, the dreadful reorganization of the image into Rima Delphi in my father's tentacles. You don't need a map. Nor for Delphi either, the girl who loved her gods. She's seen the divine flesh close now, heard their unamplified voices call her name. She's played their god games, wore their garlands. She's even become a goddess herself, though she doesn't believe it. She's not disenchanted, don't think that. She's still full of love. It's just that some kind of crazy hope hasn't. Really, you can skip all this when the loving little girl on the yellow brick road meets a man, a real human male, burning with angry compassion and grandly concerned with human justice, who reaches for her with his real male arms and boom, she loves him back with all her heart. A happy trip, you see. Except that it's really P. Burke, 5,000 miles away, who loves Paul. P. Burke, the monster down in a dungeon smelling of electrode paste. A caricature of a woman burning, melting, obsessed with true love. Trying over 20 double-thousand miles of hard vacuum to reach her beloved through girl flesh numbed by an invisible film. Feeling his arms around the body he thinks is hers. Fighting through the shadows to give herself to him. Trying to taste and smell him through beautiful dead nostrils, to love him back with a body that goes dead in the heart of the fire. Perhaps you get P. Burke's state of mind. She has phases. The trying first, and the shame. The shame. I am not what thou lovest. And the fiercer trying, and the realization that there is no way, none, never, never. But delayed, isn't it, her understanding that the bargain she made was forever. P. Burke should have noticed those stories about mortals who end up as grasshoppers. You see the outcome, the funneling of all this agony into one dumb protoplasmic drive fused with Delphi. To leave, to come out of the beast she is chained to become Delphi. Of course, it's impossible. However, her torments have an effect on Paul. Delphi as Rima is a potent enough love object, and liberating Delphi's mind requires hours of deeply satisfying instruction in the rottenness of it all. And in Delphi's body worshipping his flesh, burning in the heart of P. Burke's savage heart, do you wonder Paul is involved? That's not all. But now they're spending every spare moment together and some that aren't so spare. Mr. Shum, would you mind staying out of this sports sequence? The script calls for Davy here. Davy's still around. The exposure did him good. What's the difference? Paul yawns. It's just an ad. I'm not blocking that thing. Shocked silence at his two-letter word. The script girl swallows bravely. I'm sorry, sir. Our directive is to do the social sequence exactly as scripted. We're having to re-spool the segments we did last week. Mr. Hopkins is very angry with me. Who the hell is Hopkins? Where is he? Oh, please, Paul, please. Paul unwraps himself, saunters back. The holocam crew nervously checks their angles. GTX board has a foible about having things pointed at them and theirs. Cold shivers when an image of Isham nearly went onto the world beam inside that dial-a-dinner. Worse yet, Paul has no respect for the sacred schedules, which are now a full-time job for Ferret Boy up at headquarters. Paul keeps forgetting to bring her back on time, and poor Hopkins can't cope. Pretty soon, the boardroom data ball has an urgent personal action tab for Mr. Isham Sr. They do it the gentle way at first. I can't today, Paul. Why not? They say I have to. It's very important. He strokes the faint gold down her narrow back. Under Carbondale, Pennsylvania, a blind mole woman shivers. Important. Their importance. Making more gold. Can't you see? To them you're just a thing to get scratched with. A huckster. Are you going to let them screw you, Dee? Are you? Oh, Paul. He doesn't know it, but he's seeing a weirdie. Remotes aren't hooked up to flow ears. Just say no, Dee. No. Integrity. You have to. But they say it's my job. Will you believe I can take care of you, Dee? Baby, you're letting them rip us. You have to choose. Tell them no. Paul, I will. And she does. Brave little Delphi, insane P. Burke, saying, no, please, I promise, Paul. I try some more, still gently. Paul, Mr. Hopkins told me the only reason they don't want us to be together so much is because of who you are, your father. She thinks his father is like Mr. Cantle, maybe. Oh, great, Hopkins. I'll fix him. Listen, I can't think about Hopkins now. Ken came back today. He found out something. They're lying on the high Andes Mountains meadow, watching his friends dive. They're singing kites. Would you believe, on the coast, police have electrodes in their heads? She stiffens in his arms. Yeah, weird. I thought they only used the PP on criminals and the army. Don't you see, bleh. Don't you see, Dee? Something has to be going on. Some movement. Somebody's organizing. How can we find out? He pounds the ground behind her. We should make contact. If we can only find out. The news? She asked distractedly. The news, he laughs. There's nothing in the news except what they want people to know. Half the country could burn up, and nobody would know it if they didn't want. Dee, can't you take what I'm explaining to you? They've got the whole world program. Total control of communication. They've got everybody's minds wired in to think that what they show them and what they want what they give them, and they give them what they're programmed to want. You can't break in or out of it. You can't get a hold of it anywhere. I don't even think they have a plan except to keep things going round and round, and God knows what's happening to the people or the earth or the other planets maybe. One great big vortex of lies and garbage pouring around and around, getting bigger and bigger, and nothing can ever change. People don't wake up soon enough, we're through. He pounds her stomach softly. You have to break out, Dee. I'll try, Paul, I will. You're mine, they can't have you. And he goes to see Hopkins, who is indeed cowed. But that night, up under Carbondale, the fatherly Mr. Cantle goes to see P. Burke. P. Burke? On a cot in a utility robe, like a dead camel in a tent, she cannot at first comprehend that he is telling her to break it off to Paul. P. Burke has never seen Paul. Delphi sees Paul. Fact is, P. Burke can no longer recall that she exists apart from Delphi. Mr. Cantle can scarcely believe it either, but he tries. He points out the futility, the potential embarrassment for Paul. They gets a dim stare from the bulk on the bed. Then he goes into her duty to GTX, her job, isn't she grateful for the opportunity, etc. He's very persuasive. The cobwebby mouth of P. Burke opens and croaks. No. Nothing more seems to be forthcoming. Mr. Cantle isn't dense. He knows an immovable obstacle when he bumps into one. He also knows an irresistible force. GTX. The simple solution is to lock the Waldo cabinet until Paul gets tired of waiting for Delphi to wake up. But the costs, the schedules. And there's something odd here. He eyes the corporate asset hulking on the bed, and his hunch sense prickles. You see, remotes don't love. They don't have real sex. The circuit's designed that out from the start. So it's been assumed that it's Paul who is diverting himself or something with a pretty little body in Chile. P. Burke can only be doing what comes natural to any ambitious gutter meat. It hasn't occurred to anyone they're dealing with a real hairy thing whose shadow is blasting out of every hollow show on earth. Love? Mr. Cantle frowns. The idea is grotesque, but his instinct for the fuzzy line is strong. He'll recommend flexibility, and so, in Chile. Darling, I don't have to work tonight, and Friday too, isn't that right, Mr. Hopkins? Oh, great, when does she come up for parole? Mr. Isham, please be reasonable. Our schedule, surely your own production people must be needing you. This happens to be true. Paul goes away. Hopkins stares after him, wondering distastefully why an Isham wants to ball Waldo. How sound are those boardroom belly fears? Garble, garble creeps in. It never occurs to Hopkins that an Isham might not know what Delphi is, especially with Davy crying because Paul has kicked him out of Delphi's bed. Delphi's bed is under a real window. Stars, Paul says sleepily. He rolls over, pulling Delphi on top. Are you aware that this is one of the last places on Earth where people can see stars? Tibet too, maybe. Paul, go to sleep. I want to see you sleep. Paul, I sleep so hard. I mean, it's joke how hard I am to wake up. Do you mind? Yes. But finally, fearfully, she must let go. So that 5,000 miles north, a crazy spent creature can crawl out to gulp concentrates and fall on her cot. But not for long. Its pink dawn when Delphi's eyes open to find Paul's arms around her, his voice saying rude, tender things. He's been kept awake. The nerveless little statue that was her Delphi's body nuzzled him in the night. Insane hope rises, is fed a couple of nights later when he tells her she called his name in her sleep. And that day, Paul's arms keep her from work, and Hopkins' whales go up to headquarters where the weasel-faced lad is working his sharp tailbone off packing Delphi's program. Mr. Cantle diffuses that one. The next week it happens again to a major client, and Ferretface has connections on the technological side. And now you see, when you have a field of complexly heterodyned energy modulations tuned into a demand point like Delphi, there are many problems of stand waves and lashback and skiffle of all sorts which are normally balanced out with ease by technology of the future. By the same token, they can delicately be unbalanced, too, in ways that feed back into the Waldo operator with striking results. Darling, what the hell? What's wrong? Delphi! Helpless shrieks, writhings. Then the Rima bird is lying wet and limpless in his arms, her eyes enormous. I wasn't supposed to, she gasped faintly. They told me not to. Oh my God, Delphi! And his hard fingers are digging in her thick yellow hair. Electronically knowledgeable fingers. They freeze. You're a doll. You're one of those PP implants. They control you. I should have known. Oh God, I should have known. No, Paul. No, she's sobbing. No, no, no. Damn them. Damn them what they've done. You're not you. He's shaking her, crouching over her in the bed and jerking her back and forth, glaring at the pitiful beauty. No, she pleads. It's not true. That dark bad dream back there. I'm Delphi. My father, filth, pigs, damn them, damn them, damn them. No, no, she babbles, they were good to me. Burke underground mouthing, they were good to me, they were good to me. Ah! Her agony skewers her. Up north, the sharp young man wants to make sure this so tiny interference works. Paul can scarcely hang on to her. He's crying too. I'll kill them. His Delphi, a wired-up slave, spikes in her brain, electronic shackles in his bird's heart. Remember when those savages burned Rima alive? I'll kill the bandits doing this to you. He's still saying it afterward, but she doesn't hear. She's sure he hates her now. All she wants is to die. When she finally understands that the fierceness is tenderness, she thinks it's a miracle. He knows, and he still loves. How can she guess that he's got a little bit wrong? You can't blame Paul. Give him credit that he's even heard about a pleasure pain implants and snoops, which by their nature aren't mentioned by those who know them most intimately. Thus we think is being used on Delphi, something to control her. And to listen, he burns at the unknown ears in their bed. Of Waldo bodies and objects like P-Burke, he has heard nothing. So it never crosses his mind as he looks down at his violated bird, sick with fury and love, that he isn't holding all of her. Do you need to be told the mad resolve gelling in him now to free Delphi? How? Well, he is after all Paul Isham the Third, and he even has an idea where the GTX Neurolab is, in Carbondale. But first things have to be done for Delphi, and for his own stomach. So he gives her back to Hopkins and departs in a restrained and discreet way. And the Chile staff is grateful and do not understand what his teeth don't normally show so much. And a week passes in which Delphi is very good, docile little ghost. They let her have the loads of wildflower Paul sends up and the bland, loving notes. He plays a coonie. And up in headquarters, Weasel Boy feels that it's his destiny has clicked a notch onward and floats the word up that he's handy with little problems. And no one knows what P. Burke thinks in any way, whatever, except that Miss Fleming catches her flushing her food down the can, and the next night she faints in the pool. They haul her out and stick her with IVs. Miss Fleming frets. She's seen expressions like that before, but she wasn't around when crazies who called themselves the followers of the fish looked through flames of life as everlasting. P. Burke is seeing heaven on the far side of death, too. Heaven is spelled Paul, but the idea is the same. I will die and be born again in Delphi. Garbage, electronically speaking. No way. Another week and Paul's madness has become a plan. Remember, he does have friends. He smolders, watching his love paraded by her masters. He turns out a scorching sequence for his own show. And finally, politely, he requests from Hopkins a morsel of his bird's free time, which duly arrives. I thought you didn't want me anymore, she's repeating as they wing over mountain flanks in Paul's sun car. Now you know. Look at me. His hand covers her mouth, and he's showing her a lettered card. Don't talk. They can hear everything we say. I'm taking you away now. She kisses his hand. He nods urgently, flipping the card. Don't be afraid. I can stop the pain if they try to hurt you. This free hand, he shakes out a silvery scrambler mesh on his power pack. She's dumbfounded. This will cut the signals and protect you, darling. She's staring at him, her head going vaguely from side to side. No. Yes, he grins triumphantly, yes. And for a moment she wonders. That powered mesh will cut off the field, all right. It'll also cut off Delphi. But he is Paul. Paul is kissing her. She can only seek him hungrily as he sweeps the sun car through a pass. Ahead is an old jet ramp with a shiny bullet waiting to go. Paul has credits and a name. The GTX patrol courier is waiting for nothing but speed. Paul and Delphi wedge in behind the pilot's extra fuel tank, and there's no more talking, and the torches start to scream. They're screaming high over Quito before Hopkins starts to worry. He wastes another hour tracking the beeper on Paul's sun car. The sun car is sailing in a pattern out to sea. By the time the shirt's empty and Hopkins gets onto the hot flue to headquarters, the fugitives and his horseless howl above the Carib West. Up at headquarters, Weasel Boy gets the squeal. His first impulse is to repeat his previous play, but then his brain snaps too. This one is too hot because, see, in the long run, they can make P. Burke do anything except maybe live. Instant emergencies can be tricky. And Paul Isham the Third. Can't you order her back? They're all in the GTX Tower monitor station. Mr. Cantle and Ferret Face and Joe and a very neat man who is Mr. Isham Sr.'s personal eyes and ears. No, sir, Joe says doggedly. We can read channels, particularly speech, but we can't interpolate organized pattern. It takes the Waldo op to send 1-to-1. What are they saying? Nothing at the moment, sir. The consul's jockey's eyes are closed. I believe they are, embracing? They're not answering, a traffic manager says. Still heading 00030 due north, sir. Are you certain Kennedy is alerted not to fire on them? The neat man asked anxiously. Yes, sir. Can't you just turn her off? The sharp-faced lad is angry. Pull that pig out of the controls. If you cut the transmission cold, you'll kill the remote, Joe explains for the third time. Withdrawal has to be phased right. You have to fade over the remote's own automatics. Heart, breathing, cerebellum would go bluey. If you pull Burke out, you'll probably finish for 2. It's a fantastic cyber system. You don't want to do that. The investment, Mr. Cantle shudders. Weasel Boy puts his hand on the console jock's shoulders. It's the contact who arranged the no-no effect for him. We can at least give them a warning signal, sir. He licks his lips, gives the neat man a sweet ferret smile. We know that does no damage. Joe frowns. Mr. Cantle sighs. The neat man is murmuring into his wrist. He looks up. I am authorized, he says reverently. I am authorized to direct a signal. If this is the only course, but minimal. Sharpfate squeezes his man's shoulders. In the silver bullet screeching over Charleston, Paul feels Delphi arch into his arms. He reaches for the mesh, hot for action. She thrashes, pushing at his hands. Her eyes roll. She's afraid of that mesh, despite the agony, and she's right. Frantically, Paul fights her in the cramped space, gets it over her head, and he turns up the power. As he turns up the power, she burrows free under his arm, and the spasm fades. I'm calling you again, Mr. Isham, the pilot yells. Don't answer. Darling, keep this over your head, damn it, how can I? And an ACX-90 barrels over their nose. There's a flash. Mr. Isham, those are Air Force jets. Forget it, Paul shouts back. They won't fire. Darling, don't be afraid. Another AX-90 rocks them. Would you mind pointing your pistol at my head where they can see it? The pilot howls. Paul does so. The AX-90s take up escort formation around them. The pilot goes back to figuring out how he can collect from GTX-2, and after Goldsboro AB, the escort peels away. Holding the same course, traffic is reporting to the group around the monitor. Apparently they've taken on enough fuel to bring them to the tower port here. In that case, it's a question of waiting for them to dock. Mr. Cantle's fatherly manner revives a bit. They can't cut off that damn freak's life support, the sharp young fumes. It's ridiculous. They're working on it, Mr. Cantle assures him. What they're doing down under Carbondale is arguing. Mrs. Fleming's watchdog has summoned the bushy man to the Waldo room. Miss Fleming, you will obey orders. You'll kill her if you try that, sir. I can't believe you meant it. That's why I didn't. You've already fed her enough sedative to affect heart action. If you cut any more oxygen, she'll die in there. The bushy man grimaces. Will Dr. King get here fast? They wait, staring at the cabinet in which a drugged, ugly madwoman fights for consciousness, fights to hold Delphi's eyes open. High over Richmond, the silver pod starts to turn. Delphi is sagged into Paul's arm. Her eyes swim up to him. Starting down now, baby. It'll all be over soon. All you have to do is stay alive, Dee. Stay alive. A traffic manager has caught them. Sir, they've turned off for Carbondale. Control has contact. Let's go. The headquarters posse is too late to intercept the courier wailing into Carbondale, and Paul's friends have come through again. Fugitives are out through the freight dock and into the Neurolab admin port before the guards get organized. At the elevator, Paul's face plus his hand good get them in. I want Dr. What's-His-Name D. Tesla. She's reeling on her feet. Dr. Tesla, take me down to Tesla fast. Intercoms are squalling around them as they whoosh down, Paul's pistol in the guard's back. The door slides open. The bushy man is there. I'm Tesla. I'm Paul Isham. Isham, you're going to take your flaming implants out of this girl. Now. Move. What? You heard me. Where's your operating room? Go. But. Move. Do I have to burn somebody? Paul waves a weapon at Dr. Keene, who has just appeared. No, says Tesla hurriedly. But I can't. You know it's impossible. There'll be nothing left. You screaming well can, right now. You mess up and I'll kill you, Paul says murderously. Where is it? And wipe the fique on her circuits now. He's backing them down the hall, Delphi heavy on his arm. Is this the place, baby, where they did it to you? She whispers, blinking at a door. Yes. Because it is, see? Behind that door is the very suite where she was born. Paul herds them into a gleaming hall. An inner door opens and a nurse and a gray man rush out and freeze. Paul sees there's something special about that inner door. He crowds them past it and pushes it open and looks in. Inside is a big, mean-looking cabinet with its front door panels ajar. And inside that cabinet is a poisoned carcass to whom something wonderful, unspeakable is happening. Inside is P. Burke, the real living woman who knows that he is there, coming closer. Paul, whom she had fought to reach through 40,000 miles of ice, Paul is there, is yanking at the wall doors. The doors tear open and a monster rises up. Paul, darling, croaks the voice of love, and the arms of love reach for him. And he responds, "Wouldn't you if a gaunt she-golem flabbed naked, spouting wires and blood came at you clawing with metal-studded paws? Get away!" He knocks wires. It doesn't matter much which wires P. Burke has, so to speak, her nervous system hanging out. Imagine somebody jerking a handful of your medulla. She crashes onto the fall at his feet, flopping and roaring, "Paul, Paul, Paul," and ricketous. It's doubtful he recognizes his name or sees her life coming out of her eyes at him. And at the last it doesn't go to him. The eyes find Delphi, fainting by the doorway, and die. Now, of course, Delphi is dead too. There's total silence as Paul steps away from the thing by his foot. "You killed her," Tesla says, furious. "That was her." "Your control." Paul is furious. The thought of that monster fastened to little Delphi's brain nauseates him. He sees her crumpling and holds out his arms, not knowing she is dead. And Delphi comes to him, one foot before the other. Not moving very well, but moving. Her darling face turns up. Paul is distracted by the terrible quiet, and when he looks down he sees only her tender little neck. "Now you get the implants out," he warns them. Nobody moves. But she's dead," Mrs. Fleming whispers wildly. Paul feels Delphi's life under his hand. They're talking about their monster. He aims his pistol at the gray man. If we aren't in your surgery when I count to 3, I'm burning this man's leg. "Mr. Isham," Tesla says desperately, "you've just killed the person who animated the body you called Delphi. Delphi herself is dead. If you release her arm, you'll see what I say is true." The tone gets through. Slowly Paul opens up his arm, looks down. Delphi? She totters, sways, stays upright. Her face comes slowly up. "Paul?" Tiny voice. "Your karate tricks," Paul snarls at them. "Move! Look at her eyes!" Dr. Queen croaks. They look. One of Delphi's pupils fills the iris. Her lips writhe weirdly. Shock! Paul grabs him to her. "Fix her!" he yells at them, aiming at Tesla. "For God's sake, bring it in the lab." Tesla quavers. "Goodbye-bye," Delphi says clearly. They lurch down the hall, Paul carrying her, and meet a wave of people. Headquarters has arrived. Joe takes one look and dives for the Waldo room, running into Paul's gun. "Oh, no, you don't." Everybody is yelling. The little thing in his arm stirs, says plaintively, "I'm Delphi." And all through the ensuing jabber and ranting, she hangs on, keeping it up, the ghost of P. Burke or whatever, whispering crazily, "Paul, Paul, please, I'm Delphi, Paul." "I'm here, darling, I'm here." He's holding her in the nursing bed. Tesla talks, unheard. "Paul, don't sleep," the ghost voice whispers. Paul is in agony. He will not accept, will not believe. Tesla runs down. And then, near midnight, Delphi says roughly, "Ag, ag, ag," and slips onto the floor, making a rough noise like a seal. Paul screams. More of the ag, ag business, and more gruesome convulsive disintegrations until, by 2 a.m, Delphi is nothing but a little warm bundle of vegetative functions hitched up to some expensive hardware, the same that sustained her life before her life began. Joe has finally persuaded Paul to let him at the Waldo cabinet. Paul stays by her long enough to see her face change in a dreadfully alien and cold, convincing way, and then he stumbles out bleakly through the group in Tesla's office. Behind him, Joe is working wet-faced, sweating to reintegrate the fantastic complex of circulation, respiration, endocrines, midbrain hemostasis, the pattern flux that was a human being. It's like saving an orchestra abandoned in mid-air. Joe is also crying a little. He alone had truly loved P. Burke. P. Burke, now a dead pile on the table, was the greatest cyber system he has ever known, and he never forgets her. The end, really. You're curious? Sure, Delphi lives again. Next year she's back on the yacht getting sympathy for a tragic breakdown, but there's a different chick in Chile because while Delphi's new operator is competent, you don't get 2 P. Burks in a row, for which GTX is duly grateful. The real belly bomb, of course, is Paul. He was young, see, fighting abstract wrong. Now life has clawed into him, and he goes through gut rage and grief and grows in human wisdom and resolve. So much so that you won't be surprised sometime later to find him where? In the GTX boardroom, dummy. Using the advantage of his birth to radicalize the system. You'd call it boring from within. That's how he put it, and his friends couldn't agree more. It gives them a warm, confident feeling to know that Paul is up there. Sometimes one of them, who's still around, runs into him and gets a big hello. And the sharp-faced lad? Oh, he matures too. He learns fast, believe it. For instance, he's the first to learn that an obscure GTX research unit is actually getting something with their loopy temporal anomalizer project. True, he doesn't have a physics background, and he's bugged quite a few people. But he doesn't really learn about that until the day he stands where somebody points him during a test run and wakes up lying on a newspaper headline, Nixon unveils Phase 2. Luckily, he's a fast learner. Believe it, zombie, when I say growth, I mean growth. Capital appreciation. You can stop sweating. There's a great future here. So, a nice change on the Frankenstein story, I think. And I'm very, very fond of it. Took a whole class on it. And also it's impossible to read out loud because she invents so many fake words. But they're very on point. And it's a very good story. And let's see. The thing that strikes me about it is that it was... Let's see. That was written in 1973. So I thought it was pretty on point for 1973. So I hope you enjoyed your little gift.